Hello and welcome to PCB Chat, where we talk with experts across the printed circuit design, manufacturing, and electronics supply chain. I'm Mike Buteau, Editor-in-Chief of PCD&F and Circuits Assembly. Today's podcast is sponsored by PCB West, the leading conference and exhibition for the printed circuit design and manufacturing industry. Join thousands of engineers and designers this September at the Santa Clara, California Convention Center. Visit the website at pcbwest.com for information. My guests today are Mihir Shah, Darryl Day, and Matt Noseworthy. Mihir is CEO, Darryl is CTO, and Matt is CIO at InspectAR. InspectAR is a startup company that Darryl and Matt founded with two other classmates while in college in 2017. They conceived and built a tool for fast debugging of hardware. The novel system highlights the nets on a board and captures and shares the metadata with other engineers, regardless of the native tool environment. Welcome, guys.
Hey, thanks for having us.
It was just over a month ago that we published a story about InspectAR's origins on our website, and the story in the print version of the magazine is hitting desks now. At that time, you were just about to release InspectAR 2.0. We are here today to talk about that release, but first, for those listeners who are not familiar with the company, let's give them a brief summary of how and why you got together. So let's start with Matt.
Yeah, so myself and Darryl went to university together. I guess we call it university in Canada, college, I suppose. I always had this thirst to create jobs in my home province because it's a pretty small place. There's not a whole lot of tech work. Certainly there wasn't when I was interested in it. And so I always had this thirst to create something. My ideas were never that fantastic, to be honest, but I had the skills to do it. But then I met Darryl and Liam and Nick. And Darryl and Liam had worked down at Neuralink and encountered a lot of the problems that we're solving today and had this really great idea to apply AR to the problem. And, we thought about it for a little while. And once we realized, hey, this is actually an application for AR that isn't gimmicky, we kind of just went whole hog. And from that day out, I don't think we've slept quite as much and just grinded away at it and went through a lot of stages with it. Anyway, so during validating the product, because there was a little group inside the university that would sort of take students with this passion for entrepreneurship and nurture them and help them validate their ideas. So while we were doing that, we applied to a little incubator called YC, and they ended up really liking us, and we went through their startup school program, and eventually they invited us down for an interview, which we thought was really cool. I had never been to California, and they paid for all our flights and all this great stuff. And so we flew down there and we took the interview. We weren't quite successful there. It was pretty early on. We didn't even really have an MVP at that point. All we had was this video that wasn't actually tangible, and it was pretty much still in ideation, right? So we weren't successful. But in tandem with all that going on, we were connected with Mihir. One of our friends who was doing the program with us actually flew down to a conference in California and had met Mihir there and had told Mihir about what we were working on, which, very thankful that he had us in the back of his mind to talk about. And so Mihir sort of latched onto the idea, I think, and actually told my friend that he'd be interested in investing in it, probably not overly serious at that point. So when he flew back home and told us about it, we also thought Mihir might not be very serious, but we certainly couldn't not talk to people, right? We needed help to get this off the ground. So we started talking with Mihir and ended up actually in California. And we were like, well, how can we not, connect with Mihir and try to push this agenda forward? So we actually met with his father and went down to their one of their manufacturing facilities in Hollister. The four of us walking in the doors there, I certainly had never seen anything like a PCB manufacturing shop before. Definitely not in Newfoundland. There's places where we fish and process codfish and stuff like that, but nothing like a PCB plant. So anyway, we go in there and it sort of just totally...
How'd the smell compare?
Oh my God. I kind of like the smell of fish, but the acids and all this stuff was definitely pretty pungent. But, walking in those doors and seeing it, we sort of took a step back and realized, wow, like this is real. Like these guys aren't BS. Like they probably actually do want to invest in us guys. And anyway, we walked through and like saw the facility, and it really gave us a good perspective into how things actually work. And we had dinner with them and spent the night with them, kind of thing. I can't remember quite. Darryl, was it that night that they offered us money and we were like, what is this? Is this crazy? Like, there's no way this is real. And we left thinking, man, what is going on? This is too good to be true. Was it that night?
I believe so, yes.
Yeah.
At the dinner.
Yeah. So I think he was like, yeah, we're like super interested in you guys. Like, we like you guys and we'd really like to invest. And so we left thinking, oh my God, like we need to go talk to our mentors and like see how they feel about everything. And basically we went and visited someone who we knew down in the area, and he said, why are you guys not there? Like, go back, go back and keep talking to these guys. And so we did. And that turned into the beautiful relationship that we all have today.
And Mihir, you have an engineering background as well.
Correct. Yeah, I'm an electrical engineer. I worked at Tesla and Taser, now Axon, all the tasers and body cameras as a hardware engineer.
So when the idea was first presented to you, you knew what they were talking about.
I totally got it. It made so much sense to me as a user. I was like, all the trauma suddenly came back to light. I was like, man, in the lab, I really could have used something like this. All the time I'd spent context switching, all the time I'd spent educating other people about what I'd like them to do, whether it's a technician or somebody else. So it's just like, wow, this makes so much sense. And this was also around the time, maybe a few years after, but it was still around the time that AR, like the filters were getting really big on Instagram and those other social media sites. Pokemon Go had kind of had its run. And so it was on the forefront of everyone's mind. It was just like, will anyone ever make a useful application? And when I saw this, I was like, oh my God, this makes so much sense. Let's learn. I'd like to learn more at the very least.
The term AR as an augmented reality gets tossed around a lot, but here you have actually developed the means for overlaying the design onto the board without first accessing the CAD tool file. In fact, you don't even need the CAD file.
Right. Well, I mean, you just need the manufacturing output, so it's kind of a derivative file. So similar to what you'd send more of like an advanced board and assembly shop, kind of like IPC file and stuff like that. But that's right. You're not actively opening the CAD program and stuff like that. It's kind of doing a one-time parse run through. And thereafter, you can use it on the board or really any image or object pretty successfully. And Darryl can go into a little more detail on why AR is the kind of ultimate solution in this case, but I'll let you lead the discussion first.
Darryl, perhaps you can talk a little bit about what InspectAR does, and then we'll talk about the new release and specific features that you've added.
Yeah, so InspectAR, like Mihir mentioned, we take these like manufacturing output files that can be generated from the design files and kind of run through our system to take all that information, rich information from the file, and generate our own stuff from it. And then once we do that, we open up the app, and you have to first do a one-time calibration step so that we can align these overlays generated on the board nicely, make sure everything's matching. And then after that step, we essentially give you the ability to kind of highlight all the nets, all the different components, all that design information that you had in your CAD software, and overlay it directly right in front of you on the live PCB you're viewing. And this is very helpful because, as you may know, like PCBs can be pretty complicated. Some can be up to like 16 layers and all this different information. But when you look at a board just by itself, you don't really get that much context. And even these days, you find like a lot of silkscreen is disappearing and getting smaller and smaller. So it's harder to fit more information on the boards. So then you're always finding you're looking under like a microscope, and then you're context switching between, say, your computer with the software, some printed data sheets or whatever it is. And you're trying to go back and forth to help better understand or troubleshoot a problem or assemble the board. Where InspectAR, it just puts all that information directly in front of you so that you don't need to do all that context switching. It's just right there, interact with it, click on a component, open the data sheet, all nice and intuitive. And then you can make it easier to kind of share your screen with users and kind of point them through like the issues you're having, like highlight a net and be like, this isn't working properly and whatnot.
So you're probably cutting hours, if not even days, of back and forth work on the at the bench level.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, a metric we use internally from talking to, we now have over 3,000 people that in many capacities are using the tool. And we're seeing at the more enterprise level the kind of savings of 30 to 50% of total lab time, which is massive. Like, frankly, we're not even charging for the tool, but, we have to get adoption, do it right. learn ourselves. But yeah, I mean, in terms of the documentation, hand holding, now a lot of people are working on remote teams, and especially, still like larger companies work with their CMs in China. And you have to walk technicians and other folks on the line through different reworks, RMAs, test procedures. This tool makes it a lot easier to do so, and also protects a lot of the IP as well, just because there's less handoff constantly between folks.
Let's talk about the new release. What features have you added for 2.0?
Yeah, so one of the big ones is actually we did a big improvement to our UI. Before, the desktop and kind of mobile versions had very similar UI, and it could become kind of cumbersome. Like some features were more meant for one than the other. But now we kind of broke that apart so that now the UIs for mobile and desktop are different to give a better experience so that you can go in and interact with the board much easier depending on the platform you're on. On top of that, we also then did some stuff under the hood with our AR framework and made some improvements there that gives better ability for tracking and stuff like that. So now we have stuff like the jitter reduction, for example. So if the overlays you're finding is jittering a bit, we have this option that can help offset that and reduce that so it stays a little bit more constant. We have this new camera feature so that then we kind of have two camera modes now. We kind of have the camera zoom, which essentially tells the camera, hey, I want you to zoom in and kind of give me a bigger picture back. And then we have this other one called stretch zoom or canvas zoom, which essentially takes the image you're currently already looking at and digitally expands it. This allows for better tracking under increased zoom levels, because how it works is that the zoomed out view, we're still setting that to like our AR framework, and then that's tracking the higher level of it. But then you're going to be able to zoom in and see down to say like a pad size and just be able to probe at that. So it's much easier then to interact with really small components. On the web app end, we start supporting more files. Like we start supporting KiCad and Eagle directly instead of using the Gerbers. We now take KiCad and Eagle source files directly, as well as then continue to still support IPC 2581B for the other platforms.
I think a lot of it boils down to we took on a small number of pilot users. We worked really, really, really closely with them and listened to what they said and just went out and built what they needed, just trying to hone in and iterate on the tool and increase that percentage of time being saved and just how happy the users are with the tool.
And you said that more than 3,000 people have signed up for the free tool, or total?
Total. So that includes people that are paying for it at the enterprise level, individual level, and then obviously, in this case, majority are still free. But a lot of people, the free version actually works for them. We kind of made that a little broad because right now it's still way more about feedback, and it's a nice funnel because we've kind of limited the tiers in a way that makes sense to walk people up naturally as they get value out of it. So it's a pretty natural progression, and we're seeing that work quite well.
For the folks that are using the free version, they actually it comes with a library of boards that are embedded, correct?
It comes with a list of preloaded boards that we're constantly adding to, and those are generally sponsored boards. So we have people that say, okay, well, I have, a unique design that a bunch of my customers have, but I've done it in Altium or something that other people, if they wanted to use that file to make it, to use it with their own board, they'd have to buy a pro subscription. But what we also say to those folks and other people that want to sponsor, you just kind of pay a one-time fee. You can get your board up to be accessible by anybody on the free version just with their mobile phone. And then also the free version, we do allow people to use it with their own boards designed in Eagle and KiCad, just because, the thought was those tools are relatively cheap / people aren't even paying for KiCad. So why not make it free, a nice kind of test? And then we have a nice free trial for our pro version as well that works with boards designed, much more complex boards designed in Cadence, Altium, and works on desktop as well.
I was going to say another thing with the Sponge project is that they can come pre-calibrated. So then the users who want to use these boards can get into them and start playing with them like faster, essentially, too.
Is there a mobile version?
Yeah, free version is mobile only, mobile tablet. And then if you'd like to use on the desktop with an external camera, which is generally it's just a more robust lab setup. It's what all of our more enterprise customers use today, how they use it, then you'd want to get a pro or Teams subscription.
I think it's important to really stress the fact that the whole motivation behind this model is that we just want as much feedback as possible so we can iterate as quickly as possible and just make this tool way better every single release.
And it ties in with some of the bench tools as well.
So that's coming. So that's a lot of stuff that's in our roadmap that's really exciting. Small team, it's hard to do everything at once. And especially when you're working with other partners that are really like kind of vying for your time. But yeah, there's a strong motivation and it's on our roadmap to integrate with thermal cameras, logic analyzers, oscilloscopes. Basically, the goal for the product is to become the workbench of the future, the one kind of window into your whole lab test environment. So all that digital information, whether it's a scope waveform, kind of a full signal chain through a logic analyzer, your thermal data being overlaid, we want to bring that all into a single place. So it kind of interacts with the design and the board itself. And then those pictures or those screenshots or video shares, whatever, are just far more impactful, right? The picture just has that much more information on it. There's more context, basically.
And would you expect that to be part of 3.0?
Pieces of it, yes, but we haven't even defined 3.0 versus 2.5. It's kind of going. It's more a matter. I mean, it's interesting at this point when you start integrating with a lot of these partners. Some of them have nice, more open toolkits you can play around with, but a lot of these folks, and the way we are also kind of leaning towards to kind of build a stronger relationship with some of these partners. So it just takes a little bit of time naturally, and you have to work out some of the logistics. But our core business, our core tool is functional. People are getting value out of it today. And so the next step is kind of, we're also learning from our customer, which would be the best one to start with first. And it almost seems like thermal camera would make the most sense. That's what the majority of your users have given us feedback with.
Anything else we should emphasize before we close out?
No, I think it's good. I mean, we're growing. If any of our listeners, well, two things. One, if any of our listeners have not been to Newfoundland, I strongly encourage you to go. It's incredible. They don't have any, it's like completely eradicated coronavirus, which is amazing. It's this beautiful island off the East Coast in the Atlantic Ocean. But we're also hiring, and we are now going to start looking on more of a sales front to really push a little more aggressively, because it's a good problem to have, but like we almost can't support all of the meetings and the leads and the follow-ups because there's so much, which is great. So, it doesn't hurt to shoot an email to me, Mihir at InspectAR.com, if you have any interest or any thoughts, or if you'd like to try out the tool for your team or enterprise, you could do it online or shoot me an email. We'd be happy to set up a demo for anybody listening.
Yeah, for sure. I guess on the note of hiring too, I'm not sure if any of your listeners are interested in infrastructure, but as you scale things, infrastructure scales as well. So if anyone listening has Kubernetes experience or is really in love with microservice architecture and things like that, then you can send me an email, matt@inspectar.com.
And listeners, I wholly recommend that you go to InspectAR.com and take a look at the demos that they have. You'll really get a good look at how this all fits together. Well, that brings us to a close to today's episode. I want to thank my guests, Mihir Shah, Darryl Day, and Matt Noseworthy of InspectAR. Building the workbench of the future, I think is how you called it. I like that.
You got it.
Yep.
And I want to remind listeners that today's podcast is sponsored by PCB West, the leading conference and exhibition for the printed circuit design and manufacturing industry. Coming September to the Santa Clara Convention Center. Visit the website at pcbwest.com for information. For PCB Chat, this is Mike Buteau. Have a nice day.